The hormone everyone blames. Cortisol has become one of those words people use like a diagnosis. Can't sleep? Cortisol. Gaining weight? Cortisol. Tired but wired? Cortisol. Anxious, foggy, overwhelmed, burnt out? Cortisol again. And the word usually comes wrapped in a very simple story. This hormone is bad. Modern life keeps pushing it up. And now your body is paying the price. But that story is too simple to be useful. Because cortisol is not some design flaw in the human body. It is not a mistake. It is not a villain your body accidentally releases. Cortisol is one of the chemicals that helps keep you alive. So the real question is not why cortisol exists. The real question is why a system designed to protect you can start to feel like it is working against you. What cortisol actually is. First, strip away the internet mythology. Cortisol is a steroid hormone made by the adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys. But the adrenals do not act alone. Cortisol is controlled by a larger network, the hypothalamus in the brain, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal glands together. This is the HPA axis. It is not just a hormone source, it is a command system. That matters because cortisol is not targeted at one tiny corner of your body. Most cells in the body have cortisol receptors, which means cortisol is not a niche signal for panic. It is part of a broad regulatory language the body uses to coordinate energy, inflammation, blood pressure, and other essential functions. In other words, the body does not use cortisol only when something has gone wrong. It uses cortisol because normal life requires regulation. So already the first misconception breaks apart. Cortisol is not the chemical equivalent of a fire alarm. It is part of ordinary regulation too. Even without a crisis, your body uses cortisol as part of daily timing and control. That is why blaming cortisol for everything is like blaming electricity for every problem in a city. The signal is real, but the real story is the system using it. Why the body needs it. What does cortisol actually do? Quite a lot. It helps control blood sugar. It influences metabolism. It helps regulate inflammation. It supports blood pressure and saltwater balance. It is also involved in memory-related processes. That combination may sound unrelated at first, but the logic is surprisingly clean. When the body faces a challenge, it has to mobilize energy, manage damage, and keep critical systems stable long enough to respond. Cortisol helps make that possible. That is why calling cortisol the stress hormone is both true and misleading. True, because it participates in the stress response. Misleading, because it makes cortisol sound like a specialist for emergencies, when really, it is part of ordinary regulation too. Even without a crisis, your body uses cortisol as part of daily timing and control. And that brings us to the next misconception. If cortisol has useful jobs, why has it become so feared? Because the body's stress tools are built around trade-offs, and trade-offs only look good when you look at the right timescale. The stress response is a trade. In the short term, stress responses are brilliant. A challenge appears. The body reallocates resources. Heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, muscle readiness, attention, everything starts shifting toward immediate coping. Stress hormones help make that happen. In the right context, this is not dysfunction. It is adaptation. Occasional stress is a normal coping mechanism. This is why the body does not treat every stress response as an error to be eliminated. If something matters now, the body is willing to spend from tomorrow to solve today. That is a good trade. When the threat is brief, the response is proportional, and recovery follows. But the stress system is not built for abstract modern life in the way people sometimes imagine. It does not care whether the demand comes from injury, uncertainty, social pressure, bad sleep, ongoing worry, or constant overload. It responds to challenge. And if challenge stops being brief, the math changes. This is the turning point in the story. A system designed for adaptation can become costly, not because it is broken, but because it keeps doing its job under conditions where the job never really ends. The real problem: pattern, load, and timing. To understand that cost, you need one more layer: timing. Cortisol is not supposed to be interpreted as a single number floating in isolation. The HPA axis is dynamic. It interacts with circadian biology, the body's 24-hour timing system. Stress biology and body clock biology are tied together. Humans run on rhythms: sleep, appetite, temperature, hormone release. Cortisol is part of that timed world. That means the real problem is often not cortisol exists, or even cortisol rose. The real problem is what repeated stress does to the pattern, timing, and overall load of the system. High at the wrong time, poor recovery, repeated activation, a rhythm that stops matching the life it is supposed to regulate. This is where stress research uses a useful idea: allostatic load. In plain English, it means the cost of adaptation. The body can keep you functioning under pressure. But that does not mean the adaptation is free. The same mediators that protect in the short run can, over longer intervals, accelerate wear across multiple systems. And now, another misconception falls away. Chronic stress is not just acute stress, but more. It is not simply the same alarm ringing louder. Over time, the system itself can change how it responds. The review literature on the human stress response describes acute and longer-term stress as involving different regulatory mechanisms, with chronic elevation and non-physiological cortisol patterns linked to poorer cognitive, metabolic, and immune function. Why chronic stress often feels like exhaustion. This helps explain something many people find confusing. We imagine stress as intensity: racing heart, sweaty palms, full body alarm. And yes, stress can look like that. But chronic stress often feels different. It can feel like poor sleep, low mood, difficulty concentrating, digestive trouble, fatigue, or a strange inability to ever feel fully off. Official health sources describe long-term stress as something that may contribute to or worsen problems involving sleep, digestion, headaches, anxiety, and depression. That matters because once stress stops looking dramatic, people start misreading it. They think, if I were really stressed, I would feel panicked. But a dysregulated stress system does not have to feel cinematic. It can feel flat, dull, draining, like your body is always spending, even when nothing obvious is happening. And there is a reason that feeling can be so hard to interpret. The body is not failing randomly. It is solving a problem under constraint. The trouble is that the solution, repeated adaptation, starts creating its own downstream cost. Helpful in the moment. Expensive across months and years. The myth of adrenal fatigue. This is exactly why the phrase adrenal fatigue became so attractive. It takes a messy experience, tired, foggy, unwell, not recovering, and turns it into a simple story. Your adrenals got overworked. They got tired. That feels intuitive. But according to the Endocrine Society, there is no scientific proof that adrenal fatigue is a true medical condition. There is no validated test for it, and relying on that label can delay real diagnosis for problems such as adrenal insufficiency, depression, sleep apnea, or other conditions that actually need attention. That does not mean the symptoms people feel are fake. It means the explanation is weak. And this is a bigger lesson than it seems. Human beings are very good at noticing distress. We are much less good at inferring the mechanism behind it, especially when the real mechanism is not one tired gland, but a whole regulatory network interacting with sleep, circadian timing, energy use, inflammation, emotion, and repeated demand. Cortisol. Reframed. So here is the reframing. Cortisol is not the hormone everyone should fear. It is the hormone everyone should understand, because cortisol is what a survival system sounds like inside the body. Not just during crisis, but during normal regulation too. It helps coordinate energy, inflammation, pressure, and timing. It becomes dangerous mainly in the way many useful things become dangerous, not by existing, but by being pushed into the wrong pattern for too long. So the better question is no longer, how do I get rid of cortisol? It is, what kind of life keeps forcing this system to spend more than it can smoothly recover from? That is a more interesting question, because it shifts the story from one hormone to one design principle. The body is not built around perfect calm. It is built around adaptation. And adaptation is powerful. But adaptation always has a budget. And the unresolved question, the one scientists are still working on, is why similar long-term stress does not leave identical biological fingerprints in every person. The APA axis is dynamic, rhythmic, and highly individual. That means the future of this science is not just about stress in general, but about why one survival system bends in different ways in different lives.